Hello everyone, Giltar here with a video response to KPHM42's review of the movie Sherlock Holmes, directed by Guy Ritchie and starring Robert Downey Jr., Jude Law, Rachel McAdams, and Mark Strong. Now this is going to be a review that I'm presenting. I will have some spoilers, so if you do want to watch this movie, go watch the movie and then come back to this video, so you don't sort of ruin anything for yourself. But before you go see the movie, I will suggest that you go in with an open mind and no set expectation. Then you'll definitely enjoy this movie. Secondly, as you can see, I've got two action figures here. On the left is Eva Unit 5, the production model, and on the right is Black Getter. I'm going to leave it up to you guys to decide which character is which action figure. And if you would, please leave a comment to tell me not only what you think about my review or your own thoughts about Sherlock Holmes, but also which character you think is fitting for either action figure here. Now, getting into my review, as normal, I'll start off with my cons or criticisms, and the first and most significant one is the generally sort of weak script. The movie itself is enjoyable and fun, but any sort of plot twists, people, I think, including myself, could see a mile away. It was really cliche in a lot of parts, so unfortunately, I didn't get the kind of Sherlock Holmes story I was hoping for, because in a Sherlock Holmes story, I'm expecting something to really make me think, really puzzle me at first before some facts and evidence are sort of put forth through the character of Sherlock Holmes and other forms of narration. Unfortunately, we didn't get that in this movie. And secondly, another reason why I was disappointed with the general weakness of the script in some parts was that Guy Ritchie is someone I expected to deliver a more clever film. He certainly does it well in terms of cinematography and how he directs, but just the actual script itself didn't deliver in terms of the sort of cleverness side of things. My second criticism is that the movie is a little bit too reliant upon action scenes. It uses action scenes a little bit much in terms of trying to use it as narrative. A lot of the key scenes in the movie involve action scenes. I do understand that this is another version of Sherlock Holmes. And Guy Ritchie and the rest of the writers and whoever else was developing the movie wanted to give it, the character, the mythos, a new twist. Which is good, but at the same time, I feel that the movie relied a little too much on action and not enough on some solid script writing. The next criticism point is some of the characterization through acting and the script. First off, I'll start off with Rachel McAdams as Irene Adler. Irene Adler is supposed to be a love interest of Sherlock Holmes, which she was in the original source material by Arthur Conan Doyle. However, in this movie, she's supposed to be set up as a strong, independent woman making her way through a male-dominated world of the late 1800s. However, any momentum that was intended to be set up by that, sort of premise is subverted by the fact that she becomes essentially a damsel in distress. In the movie, she's rescued by Holmes and Watson on, I think, 2 occasions, and she doesn't seem as strong and independent as she should have been. But otherwise, she serves as a good foil towards Sherlock Holmes in that she's about deception and manipulation, whereas Sherlock Holmes is about revelation, and not only revelation, but discovery of the actual workings of a situation beneath the sort of a shallow or superficial nature of a problem, where things aren't always what they seem. And that's, the Irene Adler and Sherlock Holmes dynamic is a really great idea. And also, unfortunately, I found that Rachel McAdams didn't bring her usual charm and spark to the role. I really normally enjoy her work, but it's just, for some reason, this time she pulled off a really forgettable performance, which is too bad. A second point in the acting and character situation is Mark Strong as Lord Blackwood. Now, on the other hand, Lord Blackwood, the character, is terrible. It's very comical and silly, and I couldn't invest any serious sort of attitude towards the character. However, Mark Strong brings a great presence, really good delivery of his lines, and like Irene Adler, the Lord Blackwood character is a nice foil against Sherlock Holmes, in that Lord Blackwood is a self-made, or he claims to be a mystic and a magician, and obviously he probably isn't, and that's why Sherlock Holmes is going to sort of solve the crime or mystery. But again, bad character, but good performance. And thirdly, what will probably get me the most flack is Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Sherlock Holmes. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Robert Downey Jr., and I enjoyed his performance in the movie, but there were times where a little too much Robert Downey Jr. came through and not enough Sherlock Holmes. And by that, I mean, I think Guy Ritchie didn't rein in Robert Downey Jr. enough, gave him maybe a little too much freedom, and so what we get are times where we're not seeing Sherlock Holmes, we're seeing Robert Downey Jr. playing Robert Downey Jr. acting as Sherlock Holmes, if you guys understand what I mean by that. Like, we just see sort of these layers of separation, and we don't have full immersion in the role that Robert Downey Jr. is often known for. Like, he really gets into his characters, and this time sometimes a bit of him, I guess, slips through, or at least the sort of typical mannerisms of a Robert Downey Jr. role come through. But aside from that, it was a really nicely performed character otherwise. So that's it for my criticisms. I'll move on to my positive points in the movie, and I'll start off with Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr. I think it's a really great and interesting twist on the role. In fact, the character of Sherlock Holmes and the character of Dr. Watson have a role reversal in comparison to the source material. For anybody who isn't aware, in the source material, Sherlock Holmes is normally an emotionally detached and really cold and logical person. And it's Watson who's more passionate. Watson is the biographer of Sherlock Holmes in the source material. And Holmes at times is actually not happy, or at least pleased, that Watson sometimes takes a more romantic and embellished route of describing Holmes in his biography. So it's nice to see this role reversal in the movie, where we have Sherlock as the sort of more passionate, spirited person, and Watson as the more grounded, serious individual. So that was a great twist on things. Another thing I look at is the great relationship between Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr. And by that I mean they have really great chemistry, and they bring that to the character dynamic between Holmes and Watson. In this movie, we see Holmes as a really independent person who just wants to live on his own sort of rules and at his own whim, whereas Watson has found a woman he loves. He wants to settle down and move on with his life. It's kind of like having a friend of yours who's stuck in their college days while you're trying to sort of grow up a little bit and, you know, get on with your life. That was a really great dynamic, and I think a lot of people can get some relation, or can relate to, in that, you know, your best friend is perhaps in many ways your complete opposite, yet there's just something about your relationship that makes it strong. And Watson and Holmes have such a really interesting relationship because they have a lot of things they don't like about each other. They rub each other the wrong way at times, personality clashes and such, but at the same time they have this great adoration and admiration for each other. They're brothers in all things but blood. So it was really a nicely written and executed performance by both actors and the script. Another thing I like about the movie is just the twist on the Sherlock Holmes character and the mythos. As someone who has knowledge about the source material, not that I'm an expert or have read everything that Arthur Conan Doyle has written of Sherlock Holmes, I do know enough so that I do have some solid understanding of the original character. But at the same time, I welcome and appreciate the change that we see in this movie to really shake things up, but not to a bad way, because there are some aspects of Sherlock Holmes that are the same. I mean, in the source material, he's more of a serious character, whereas in the movie he's more, you know, gregarious and flamboyant, yet still a genius. But there are some similarities as well. Both characters in the source material and the movie don't exactly get along with a lot of people because of their eccentricities. I mean, in the novels, Sherlock is sometimes a little abrasive, but people don't always immediately get it because he speaks on a higher level than a lot of people's understandings. But in the movie, Robert Downey Jr.'s character of Sherlock Holmes is a little more upfront about how he sort of doesn't get along with people. I found that a very nice similarity beneath a layer of sort of difference of personalities. Another thing I really like about it is that Watson is more true to the original source material. More often than not, Watson in stereotyped depictions is the oafish, bumbling sidekick. In this movie, Watson is a soldier, a veteran. He's a doctor. He's competent, and he's every bit and equal to Sherlock Holmes in this. It's a partner relationship in this duo of investigating detectives. It's not Watson as the sidekick, a sort of manservant to Holmes. In this movie, we get an equal relationship, which is really nice to see. Jude Law does a wonderful job as Watson, and I hope that I think there's going to be a sequel. I read about that. It's in works. But Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr., when they return, I hope they bring the same chemistry to the roles, because that was the highlight of the movie. The twist on the normal roles, and also the twist on the depictions of the characters. And again, whereas Holmes is a little different from the source material, Watson is actually truer than most depictions I'm aware of. So overall, it's a really great movie, and I kind of look at this like I look at Conan the Barbarian, the movie by John Milius and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger that came out in the early 80s. I'm a big fan of the Conan the Barbarian, or the Cimmerian character. I read of most of Robert E. Howard's stories involving the character and some other characters as well. And so I love the source material. I love the movie as well, but I look at them as separate things. I look at the movie as simply a different incarnation. I don't look at it as something to replace the written original character. And I think if you guys look at the Sherlock Holmes movie in a similar way, where you're not looking for something to replace something else, but you're looking at it as simply another look or another take on the same type of character, you'll probably enjoy it for most of its positive points, and not be too put off by the negative points. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review and got something out of my perspective on it. Please leave your comments or do a video response. And again, which is Sherlock and which is Watson? Tell me which action figure is which. So thanks again for watching, guys. Until next time.